Good morning. It's another Monday, time for us to look at all the newspaper headlines and off the press. I hope you had a good weekend. My name is Felicity Ezewike. I'm not doing this alone. I have a social commentator, Ekene Ezeji. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start with the Punch newspaper. Overcrowding, poor facilities, worsened student woes in FG Varsity's hostels. That's on the front page. We are worried, says ASU. We queue to use toilets, Abu student. Sewage leaks, environment stinks at Uniport NDDC halls. Hostel management should be outsourced, says Utomi. That's pictures of some of the facility on the front page. I think it's been always sad, hostels and universities, to be honest. I know that for the years that I was in the hostel, I had to treat myself of a certain infection repeatedly because of how bad the environment was, in spite of all the care you take. This is chronic and needs to be addressed, and the Punch is throwing more light on it here on the front page. Take complaints to Senate. Presidency replies ministerial list critics. We also have Southern leaders Sean Abdusalami's summit of a Mieti invitation. Mieti allows invitation. Southwest governors roll out fresh security measures. August, that's Makinde. Still at the very bottom. We have police tighten security. Court decides Zaki bail today. Tenant kills Lagos landlord, dumps cups in septic tank. That story has been trending. And then invite Buhari over $1 billion ECA fund. PDP urges National Assembly. Let's go to the top of the paper and see what's there now. We have federal government, US, that's it. US sell $42 million Dizian Allies luxury yacht. That's on page 18. Don't reappoint Ngige as Labour Minister. NLC warns federal government. Tragedy as gunmen kill 60 mourners at Borno graveside. If you've been following our news, you would have seen that story and the president's reaction and everything on that. No going back on Lagos-Ibadan Road, 4-month closure. That's a federal government. On the back page of the Punch, we have CBN's 5-year plan. Chasing shadows with a charmed audience. That's the part 2 of it. You apparently missed the first part if you'd like to look at it. And a truck along the Lagos-Badagry Expressway makes its debut on the back page, where you have expression on the Punch newspaper. All right, Ekene, over to you. Which of these would you want to speak on first?
I'd really have to speak on the university facilities. I mean, you've said already how your own experience.
Yeah, it was a terrible
was still awful. I'm sure it's worse than when you went now.
Yeah, I didn't realize you could stay and be sick that long.
Wow, that's awful. And what comes to mind, because I'm sort of documenting my father's biography, at the time, so you can imagine at the time he was in university, they had very, just from the description, very plush conditions, a room to yourself, ensuite, balcony, washing. People used to come and offer to wash their clothes for them, and then they had a balcony. I think somewhere to read. Very comfortable breakfast, the whole whack. Yeah,
that must have been like
range of buffet.
Years away.
Well, there you go. Just to see that things have really deteriorated, and it's not just to take it. And I have to commend Punch, because each time I do a review with you, they're doing something like this. They've done one on the schools, they've done one on the hospitals, and now they're doing one on the university. I think it's systematic. It's not accidental that they're doing this in-depth exposure on the deterioration of our public facilities, and we really need to take note. Also, the fact that Pat Utomi says, where he points the finger is at the management. So he's not saying so much that the money isn't available, they're not being paid to do their job. He's saying that they're not doing their job. That's what it tells me. Because for him to say that, he's someone who has insider knowledge. That's where the problem is. It's not in the funding, it's in the mismanagement of funding as usual. And for me, why it bears looking at more in a more in-depth ways to say there is a link between the mindset of the students you churn out and the environment they learn in. There's no way you can go to school in an environment like that and not come out like a hustler. You won't come out like someone entitled to, someone with a purpose. You come out like somebody who needs to grab everything you need, like you're in a jungle. That's what you're producing.
It is a jungle.
It's really,
I
it's
can
really
tell
disheartening.
You for free.
Yeah, so this needs to be looked at, because this for me is you say it's where everything springs from. If we can't get this right, then what are we looking at?
There's this tragedy over the weekend, the Borno graveside killing. The presidency has condemned it. One of the comments that the people that perpetrated the crime will pay high price. In your opinion, is this just talk, or do we actually get to see a response, a swift and immediate response to the killings?
Unfortunately, I have to say I'm not necessarily gingered by that statement, simply because right now what would motivate more people is to see preventative measures. We don't want talk after the event. There's too much talk going on. And it all seems like, toothless bulldog kind of, pronunciations. Because if you could have done something, the time to have done it was before they killed 65 mourners, for goodness sake. That's like someone took...
60.
Okay, 60. Okay, I think I read 65 somewhere else. But the fact that they had such an effrontery to take that kind of an action at the time someone is being buried tells you that you're not doing anything to put them off. If anything, they're very confident to go in there and take an action like this. So you're making this statement post the event doesn't really give anyone much motivation or inspiration.
Your quick thought on NLC warning the federal government not to put Ngige as Labour Minister anymore. You know his first term was really rocky, from the minimum wage negotiations to the NFIF controversy and some other issues, the back and forth, the committee, sometimes you say one thing or the other. So it was really rocky, and now they're saying because of that he should not. Probably, I'm assuming, because of that, they shouldn't put him again as the Labour Minister. Is that a wise call by the NLC?
Well, I mean, you've said various things that really would go towards not recommending him. But why I'm almost wary of commenting on the ministerial nominees or, well, appointees really at this stage, because it looks like they're going to scale it, is it all seems like, a lot of childish... The considerations being put forward to appoint these people don't really give you much to feel confident about. I think one of the reviews I read only could point at 2 or 3 people out of that list of 43 that had anything to recommend them, some newcomers, but the rest of them really were the old boys club, and people have called them the campaign team.
But don't you think that if you remove him, because if this is already nominated and he's in the running, it will make more sense for somebody who has been there and is already working the process, other than to employ somebody who is completely new and put somebody who is completely new that has to learn and understand the entire process, and then the person might come and start, rejigging and all of that, and then the person just has 4 years, and then we're back to where we are.
I don't think you believe what you're saying. Felicity, to be honest, I really haven't understood the psychology of our president. This would have been a low-hanging fruit for him, to have appointed completely fresh technocrats. Because now he's running on his second term. He has nothing to prove. He's not looking to be re-elected. This is the time to just look everybody in the face and say, I'll do what I really want to do. I'll show you what I really want to do for Nigeria. I'm not shackled by electioneering. But he's still behaving like somebody who is having an out-of-body experience. Why is he still letting people puppeteer him in this way? That's even being gracious to him if he indeed is being puppeteered. Because it's possible he has no idea. We've hoped and we've hoped. But each time he keeps falling our hand, so to speak, because he's not doing anything to give us hope. And at the moment, we just need to see one fresh face, because we're disheartened. Why would you reappoint someone who hasn't performed? If this was a private business, this would never happen. It's because it's public office that we're playing games with it like this.
Okay, we'll just leave the Punch on its own and move to the Nation. Let's see what's on the Nation newspaper. I love the fact that kids are on the front page this morning. The children choir performing during the African Church Cathedral's 2019 Community and Cultural Harvest in Lagos. I'm particularly delighted. They look all beautiful.
Yeah, very, very
I don't
colorful.
know if we can get that picture on the screen now so you can see. There you have it. Lovely kids boogieing things out. A refreshing sight this morning from the harrowing picture on the Punch newspaper. All right, we take more headlines now. Inside the paper, you will see Edo APC, third party behind Obaseki Oshomole rift. That's on page 7. We saw those 2 men over the week last week, and they were laughing, and people were like, "Are these not the 2 people that are allegedly at loggerheads
with each other?
How do they do it?"
I know, it's politics, right? I mean, it gives you an insight into.
They tell you there are no long-term enemies in politics. You only have people with similar interests or disinterest.
Yes.
Anyway, that's by the side. Let's look at this one. It says banks, their customers, and unending bouts. That's on page 2, NURTW factions clash in Ibadan. We also have VP visits Channels TV reporters family. That's a good one. We also have Trip Skills 6 in Katsina, Kaduna. This one says, I'll bounce back this season. That's Zoho, a bit of sports for you. Let's go to the screamer on the front page now on The Nation, and that's 3 more hurdles set for would-be ministers. Fate of South nominee shaky. That's something for you. Row over account with 50 billion naira. That's the federal government has initiated the legal process for a permanent takeover of an account which it believes the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, is operating without its knowledge. Southwest to roll out security plan. That's some of the headline on the front page of The Nation. And behind it, you have Samuel Mache saying LKJ's other side. We have hardball and something on silver. Yes, your thoughts?
Well, maybe I'll start with Lateef Jakonde's. People are basically saying how well he's done, and it's good that they can point to things he's actually done. And it's not hard to find if someone has a pattern of doing things, to find projects that they've actually accomplished to point at. So sometimes when it looks like we're being critical of government, it's not like we're setting a high bar. We're really just saying, do things that people can point to say, this is your track record. So I want to, at least look at this man and say people on the whole seem to be able to point to projects that he has accomplished, that they have experienced and they have, enjoyed. And that's really the standard. If people aren't performing, then why are we still reappointing them? So from that to the ministerial appointees who apparently have 3 hurdles to leap, people will be surprised if they fail to completely just overhaul the 3 hurdles in one leap, So I'm not sure if the newspapers are putting that to try and give us some hope that perhaps there's something resembling a screening going on, because we all know that it's just bow and go.
What the ministers, the Senate has been doing is not a screening?
I'm sorry, but this is just play acting. They're playing to the galleries. They're trying to make us, placate us, let's just put it that way, because someone even wrote an article and said, just bow and go. Just bow and go, because there's nothing really they're going to ask you that even if you misanswered. Because even on the surface of it, most people can criticize the appointees and say, you haven't performed. You don't have a track record of performance like Lateef Jakonde, so why are you here? I really don't understand it. And I'm also curious as to why we still feel it's okay to recommend these people without actually attaching a portfolio to their recommendation.
Yeah, that's one
Are we not
concern
taking that seriously at all?
Unapologetically. I think it's time we begin to evolve to the point where ministers get portfolios so they can ask you constructive
specific questions.
Specific
so we know that you're coming in for a purpose and you have some knowledge of what you're coming in for.
Okay, is there something else you want to talk on quickly before we move on to this
I'm sure there was, but at the moment it's not coming to mind.
This day newspaper is up for review now. We have ministerial candidates rush to submit asset declaration certificates. We have Senate screens 9 more nominees today. How Southeast PDP governors move to nominate potential ministers failed. That's an inside scoop, I guess, for this day newspaper. You might want to look at it. And just above that screamer, you have Zamfara Gov. We've secured release of 300 kidnapped victims. Details is on page 10 of the paper. Beside a picture of welcome to Lagos, 2 smiling people. We know their faces by now. One is the Lagos State governor and the other is the president of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina. Buhari orders reprisal as Boko Haram kills 60 mourners in Borno. Middle Belt Southern leaders opt out of peace talks. Oando records 315 billion naira turnover, 7.2 billion naira profit in 6 months. These are some headlines for you. Look at the top of the paper, just above the masthead. Buhari OK's committee to herald AFCFTA implementation. Recapitalization, foreign investors set to dominate insurance sector. It has a rider. European, American, South Africa financiers making caution into the industry. On the back page of this day, we have Shaka Momodu speaking on infant terrible in Lugard House. What is it about? I guess that's from Kogi State. Yeah, Lugard House, the famous Lugard House at the top of Mount Patti. All right, let's take a look at some of these headlines.
Yeah, a couple of them are quite eye-catching. The fact that they've recovered 300 people who were kidnapped by bandits, and apparently not with any money spent. They claim they didn't have to pay any ransom at all. And we're curious, how did you manage to do that? Because, 300 is a large number of people. please give us more insights. It's not that we don't, we're not happy that you've recovered them, but we would like to know what you're getting right so we can replicate it across the country. You know,
well, there's this documentary I watched on the BBC over last night, actually, and it was on the special work that a particular arm of government, Kyari, is heading, that IRT, to return victims that have been kidnapped, and they showed an extensive background on the work that they do and how many people they've been able to save, and those that they've
that's
brought
good news, isn't it?
Yeah. So as much as it's good work, there's still a whole lot more that needs to be done.
Yeah, I would like to know how they managed to get 300 people recovered without spending a dime or a kobo. And then the Southeast governors, this is part of, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm sure I'm not alone. I find the way we do politics here, it's a bit like school children, really. It's almost like, I don't know what to call it, cliques. You know, so the Southeast governors, apparently, they had nominated some, you called it an insider scoop. They had put forward some names, but apparently the APC had rejected or pushed or pressed for the president not to take those names on the basis that if he had, then the people who had campaigned for him in the Southeast would not be, they wouldn't be able to answer to them. So this is further verifying the fact that these are just reward. This is like a reward system for those who campaigned for me, those who stood for me during the campaign. Here's your reward. They're using this company to play games. I mean, this country rather to play games. I really find
there
it very
was a time, I think,
our
president was quoted as saying that he will pay attention to
the 95. That's what's echoing in my head right now. And I feel what are they really trying to snuff out what little hope we have that we actually are running a country here and we're not just playing back school, I don't know, politics. The whole thing seems very discouraging.
The Vanguard is next for review now. It's risky, illegal to outlaw Shiites. Can show Sani Sans speaking on the prescription of the Islamic movement of Nigeria. A couple of writers to that story. We're studying court order, no plan to attack Southwest, says IMN. Details of that story is on page 5 of the paper. There are two more writers from Cannes. Let's take the one from Cannes. It says FG acted with impure intentions. Action against IMN unconstitutional, Sands insists. You say IMN whipping up sentiments, presidency. Say they've also explained that it's not against the practice of their religion, just the violence that they're prescribing rather the violence that they are into. All right, APC PDP in verbal war over $1 billion ECA fund for military equipment. That's also on the front page, just below the headline. We also have the Edo Assembly crisis. Buhari directs Obaseki to issue fresh proclamation. El Rufai speaking there. We have Ondo Assembly, Snake Saga. I wouldn't succumb to blackmail. Akeredolu tells lawmakers. Safety audit, NCAA confirms Air Peace Fleet Air Wode. On the AFC FTA, Buhari approves establishment of National Action Committee. We've seen that story repeatedly in all the papers. We'll go to the very top of the paper where you have Apapa Oshodi gridlock. Presidential order tax team fail. Banks lending to agri sector falls short of CBN 7% target. There's also something on presidential panel probes alleged $1.8 billion oil scam, summons NNPC boss. And on the back page, of course, is sports. We'll highlight that a little bit. Let's just hear Ekene's thoughts on some of these headlines.
Okay, well, maybe I should start with the IMN, Islamic Movement for Nigeria. I wish the president had some sort of counsel that helped him get things right, you know, because we really need him to score some cheap points now. Most people who would have, because if you watch the videos of the protests, there's some really violent activity. There's one of a young man, I'm sure you've seen that, where he leaps onto the car and he's repeatedly smashing it. So normally, most people would agree that, look, you need to contain this. You need to put something in place to contain this kind of activity before it spirals. But the way he's gone about it by prescribing an entire, group of people has now meant that he can't even score a cheap point on this one. Everyone, even people who would like these people contained, are not happy with the way, because here you are, you haven't released their leader, even though the court order states that you should. And the same courts that you're abusing, in a sense, is now giving you permission to go and prescribe the same group that would not be protesting if you had done the right thing, according to what the courts have said. So it's almost like you're rubbing it in their faces that you're really strong, you're using strong arm tactics. So you don't seem to be on a level. You don't seem to be objective. You don't seem to be, on the one hand, you seem to be a hypocrite.
Are you completely against the proscription, or how, and the timing?
This proscription is questionable simply because it looks like it's taking a whole group of people and it's putting them under lockdown. What you needed to do was deal with the people who are, you can clearly see them on the video, who are promoting violence at this time. You can contain them. You don't need to go and put out a proscription, especially when you haven't obeyed a court order. I really feel the two are linked. You can't use the same court to constrain people, the same court that has issued release order, and you've chosen not to obey that. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. So I feel contain the violence. Everybody will be on your side. Contain the violence, because clearly it's troubling to see people getting more and more, and killings. People have died from this. So really, we should be on your side, but not the proscription, because it stinks of hypocrisy.
Thank you very much, Ikene, for coming on the program.
Oh, okay, my pleasure.
All right, we'll just take a look at some sports stories before we wrap things up. On the back page of the Vanguard, we have the Iheanacho have found happiness after Eagles AFCON snub. Team Nigeria emerges winner of first African Track Cycling Cup. Pillars, Aito Cup 2019 champions pocket 20 million naira. Details inside of the paper. 15 countries confirmed for 2019 ITTF Africa Cup. That's all on the back page of the Vanguard. We go to complete sports now. Iheanacho is again captured here. Iheanacho is a finisher. Leicester assistant coach backs Nigerian to shine a new season. That's the man himself clapping. We also have Carlos scores. We have Uzoho eager to hit top form. Everton make 55 million euro Zaha bid. Bayern confident of San deal. Barcelona planning for post-Messi era. Okay, those are some of the stories you will find on the front page. We have Dembele shoots down Gunners. That's something for you. Red slump to embarrassing defeat. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Complete Sports newspaper. And of course, on the back page, you have the transfer stories. Lukaku begs United to lower £80 million asking price. That's it for the Complete Sports. More stories there for you if you'd like to go see your vendor. Let me quickly thank Ikene again for coming. Thank you one more time.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, thank you for watching. I hope this was informative for you. You can go to your vendor and get a copy. They need to be in business, Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Felicity. It's a weekend.